Hello, questions. Mystery Writer here. And today I will be reading Hero, Villain, Vigilante, All of the Above by Katydid. Now, this fic was absolutely amazing. I 100% recommend it. It was absolutely hilarious, and if you can, go give kudos on Archive of Our Own. As usual, you can see all the tags on screen. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the summary. Once a year, an April Fool's villain pops up to play pranks. It's All Might wearing a paper bag over his head. This year, Izuku is joining him in the one-for-all holder tradition. Notes: Happy April Fool's Day! Thank you to Manfedstiku, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, for a prompt perfect for the holiday, GFan97 for brainstorming with me, and Problem Child for the title idea. Detective Naomasa Tsukachi chugged his coffee as he stared out the window at the rising sun. A grim light burned in his eyes. His hair was uncombed. He did not look to be like he shaved. A fellow police detective opened the station door. Naomasa! You're here early. Wait, isn't today your day off? Darkly, Naomasa said, The April Fool's villain starts at the crack of dawn. The who? Oh, do you mean that weirdo who plays a bunch of pranks every year? The detective shrugged. He's harmless, though. People enjoy his pranks. Why bother with him when we have bigger priorities? Harmless? Naomasa rose from his chair, his eyes blazing. That bastard makes a mockery of the entire police force every goddamn April 1st. His comrade recoiled, shocked by the uncharacteristic swearing. I only meant that such a piddly target seems beneath your league. You're our liaison with All Might himself. Naomasa's eye twitched. I've identified the April Fool's villain as a criminal with the potential to rival All Might. There are records of him appearing since the dawn of the Age of Quirks. He's an immortal, unstoppable monster. Some believe him to be a supernatural creature. But there's no need to trouble All Might. Not when April Fool's Day is the only day of the year he takes off. I can't let his vacations be interrupted. This year, I'll finally catch the villain. He laughed like someone who'd chugged too much caffeine in a short period of time. An immortal villain? What kind of conspiracy theories are you talking about? Are you the one playing a joke on me? Oh no. You look serious. And you're still laughing. The detective tiptoed away, casting a few worried glances over his shoulder. Izuku Midoriya hadn't known what to expect when All Might asked him to meet him at dawn on the same beach where he'd trained to receive One for All. His mentor had sounded very serious, saying they needed to have a top-secret discussion about a deadly villain. Surely this must be a terrible criminal to have rattled even All Might. Izuku had come prepared with his analysis notebook and an assortment of weapons borrowed from the support department in his backpack. New trash had started to pile up on the beach already. Izuku scowled, annoyed to see how the littering had ruined his cleaning efforts. Happy April Fool's Day! Toshinori Yagi, in his skinny form and wearing a paper bag over his head, jumped out from behind the trash heap. The bag had 2 holes to reveal his bright blue eyes. He put his hands on his hips and laughed maniacally. Ho ho ho! Young boy! You've been taken hostage by me! His fingers flexed like claws. Now you will serve as witness to all my maniacal plans! Izuku said, Hi, All Might. So there's no villain? It was just a prank? I should have realized when I saw the date. He didn't mind. The prank had been funny, though he did wonder why he'd needed to get up so early in the morning. Toshinori laughed harder. All Might? Where's All Might? There's no #1 hero to save you! Only the dastardly April Fool's Day villain! I know it's you. You're literally just wearing a bag with holes for eyes over your head. Izuku stifled a yawn behind his hand. Such a poor disguise couldn't fool a fanboy. There was no costume besides the bag. Toshinori wore jeans and a sweatshirt. For some reason, he also carried a bulky backpack. Toshinori wilted. Funny! No one has ever recognized me before. Maybe because most people don't know me in my skinny form. And I've heard you use your fake villain voice during training exercises at class, Izuku said. A distant memory resurfaced. Wait, have I heard of the April Fool's villain before? Some prankster who only pops up on April 1st? And wears a paper bag over his head. That's right! Toshinori cackled villainously again. I'm about to reveal to you a cherished secret of the one-for-all lineage. Only holders are allowed to know. I never even told Sir Naitai or Gran Torino. Ooh. Izuku leaned forward. This new All Might lore had been worth getting up early. Our tradition started with the very first one-for-all holder. Apparently, the first thought it would be funny to prank his brother by claiming he'd decided to become a villain and join his side, only to reveal it had all been a lie, and then run off with some important documents. Ever since then, each one-for-all holder becomes a villain on April 1st. It's our way of annoying All for One by reminding him of his past humiliation. Toshinori winked. Or at least Izuku thought he winked. It was hard to tell under the bag. I enjoy it. Once a year I get a chance to blow off steam and have fun with my powers. Izuku gasped. This explains why you, always go on vacation on April 1st. Fans had been puzzling over that mystery for decades. Most people thought it was All Might's birthday. Some thought it was the anniversary of a personal tragedy. One weirdo who went by Hates Fire, Loves Soba insisted that All Might was a robot who had to undergo yearly maintenance. Izuku felt delighted to be the only fan in the know. Seriously, Toshinori said, I called you out here so early in the morning because we have a busy day ahead of us. Izuku Midoriya, as the 9th holder of One for All, I'm here to initiate you into our glorious tradition of April Fool's villainy. Reaching into his backpack, he pulled out another paper bag with 2 eye holes. Do you accept this honor? Yes! Izuku cried, latching onto the paper bag with almost as much enthusiasm as he had All Might's hair so many months ago. Izuku felt incredibly cool lurking on top of a roof with All Might posing by his side. He'd always admired heroes, not villains. But he was starting to see the appeal. If nothing else, there was a real sense of superiority and mischief in looking down at the tiny people below. Toshinori said, Since you're a kind-hearted and heroic boy, completely unsuited to villainy, let's start you off with an easy target endeavor. Izuku said firmly. Toshinori blinked. Or we could do that. Now Masa crouched at his desk, glaring at the police scanner like a panther about to strike. At the first word of the April Fool's villain, he grabbed his jacket and ran for the door. In his sleep deprivation, he put his coat on inside out. When Naomasa arrived, Endeavor's agency had been decorated with All Might merchandise. Not a single window remained visible under the decals. Warily, Endeavor growled, I'm taking the day off. I expect this to be cleaned up when I return. Then stormed away. Burning called after him, But you have Greetings, boss! Her shoulders sagged. Ugh! We don't want to have to clean this either! Now Amasa examined the merchandise. This is all knockoff merch, much of which was recalled for safety issues. Clearly our villain knows nothing about All Might. Don't try to burn it. You'll release strange chemicals. Drat! Vernon said, her flames dying down. Please, can you help me throw out all this? You've been the victim of a very deadly and dangerous villain. I'm confiscating everything as evidence, now Amasa said seriously. Close enough, Vernon said. By the way, someone stole Endeavor merchandise from our storage in the basement. That's odd, now Amasa frowned. The April Fool's villain usually only leaves behind items for his pranks. He doesn't steal. He's escalating. I always knew he was destined to become a more deadly threat. Next, he'll take over Japan. Vernon shrugged. I mean, it's all stuff we couldn't sell. I'd have paid him a transportation fee if he hadn't dumped all this other garbage on us instead. A crowd had gathered across the street taking pictures. Some of them had t-shirts with designs of paper bags on the front. Now Amasa glared. Villain fans. What a disgrace. Vernon chuckled. I'd probably think this situation was funny if it was someone else's problem. I don't mind seeing my boss get tweaked a little. Every year, the villain's fans grow in number. Now Amasa twitched. He's trying to amass an army larger than All Might's. Could he be brainwashing him? Or are they so foolish? This is how Japan ends. Destroyed by a villain because everyone thought he was funny. Everyone except me. Only I understand the threat. Vernon regarded him with a raised eyebrow. Whoa! The last person I saw break down this hard had the misfortune of being married to my boss. Shoto is going to love this, Izuku said, scrolling through the pictures he'd taken of Endeavor's agency with its new decorations. First, he needed to post them online anonymously. Then he could share the link with Shoto after obtaining plausible deniability. A good friend would make sure Shoto got to enjoy the whole world enjoying Endeavor's humiliation. Best of all, Izuku had removed abominable knockoff All Might merch from the world. To Izuku's surprise, he found many pictures posted already. People noticed our prank. Maybe it affected the number 2 hero. Actually, the April Fool's villain has a lot of fans. We have the oldest fan club in existence, dating back to the dawn of the Age of Quirks. The first was supposedly very handsome, and his alter ego quickly became popular with a wide range of characters. Toshinori smiled. It makes me happy to bring smiles to people's faces as a villain as well as a hero. Izuku looked through search results. The April Fool's villain had a fan site, merch, and even an entire conspiracy theory blog dedicated to him. Now he'd seen the logo, he remembered Shoto wearing a shirt with a paper bag on front. I think Shoto's a fan too. That will make this news even better for him. Oh dear. I'm encouraging hero students to admire villains. Despite his words, Toshinori looked pleased. Izuku closed his laptop. For our next pranks, let's target villains and people with bad All Might takes. Toshinori blinked. But one of those groups isn't evil enough. Izuku nodded. Good point. We'll go easy on the villains. Kashan is first. Your classmate is a villain? Toshinori sounded confused. He had a very bad All Might take yesterday. I can't tell you. It's too vile for your delicate ears. Katsuki Bakugo had dressed in his hero costume after receiving an invitation to Murder Arena. Supposedly, only for the most cool and dangerous people. Instead, he'd arrived at a building with the sign outside reading, Hugging Support Group. Somehow, he knew Deku was responsible for this. In the distance, Izuku filmed a video to send to Mitsuki. Sharing it with the entire world was tempting, but that would ruin his blackmail material. Stain stalked the streets, a dark and mysterious creature of the night. Ooh, a super rare All Might card with the letters printed backward! Only 6 such earnest cards existed around the world. As soon as Stain reached for the merch, a cage fell over him, trapping him underneath. A string yanked the card away. Standing on a building rooftop, Izuku cackled and crossed one of the villains off his list. Next to him, Toshinori said, "Whoa, you're good at this. 3 pranks and it's still early morning. Usually at this time of day, I've only left funny notes around town." Bubble Girl waved at Centipeder. "Did you get one of these too?" Centipeder nodded. "The boss said he's given us the day off. That doesn't seem like him, especially with so much paperwork to be done." "Let's take this win before his good mood wears off," Bubble Girl advised. They both ran for the door. Meanwhile, Sir Night-Eye had not shown up for work because he'd received a tip promising him rare All Might merchandise. He arrived at the warehouse only to find it full of Endeavor merchandise. His anguished screams echoed around the block. He stormed off to the police station to lodge his crime report. Hidden above, Izuku cackled gleefully. He was getting a hang of his evil laugh. Sweating, Toshinori muttered, "I'm glad I never revealed my alter ego to Mirai." Izuku crossed his name off the list of people with bad All Might takes. Even if Sir Night-Eye posted this dreadful take 10 years ago, there's no statute of limitations on revenge. Toshinori startled. "I thought we were taking revenge for how he disliked you as my successor and wanted One for All to go to his handpicked student instead." Izuku looked up. "He what now?" Toshinori sweated more. "Oh, look! A piece of my merch got mixed in with the Endeavor stuff." "Merch!" Izuku leapt down from the building and clawed his way through the pile. He never did find it, though. Now Masa arrived at the Endeavor agency with his wagon. "Sir Night-Eye found your missing merch. Hurry up and take it off my hands. I must return to pursuit of the villain." Vernon groaned and put a hand over her eyes. "I told you we don't want it! I just finished cleaning the windows of the last traces of All Might decals. Can't you just dump it?" Now Masa glared. "I'm an officer of the law. I don't litter. What about donating them to charity?" "We tried. They wouldn't take it anymore." Vernon picked up an Endeavor plushie and waved it in the air. "Don't get me wrong, the boss has plenty of fans, but he got in a competitive mood and insisted he would make as many plushies as All Might. Well, there wasn't enough demand. All Might is more popular with the kids. Endeavor has more of a dark image. Also, All Might sells his merch abroad. People in other countries haven't even heard of Endeavor. Everyone who wanted a plushie already got 2 extras for free. Now we can't even give these stupid dolls away." Stain was recently delivered to a police station in a cage. He's been going berserk, babbling about merchandise. What if we put all this merchandise in his cell? It might calm him. "Great idea! If Satan attacks unworthy heroes, but he hasn't gone after my boss yet, then he must be an Endeavor fan." Redestro gazed down at the Pinocchio puppets strewn across his desk. What is the meaning of this? Entering his office, Getten reported, "They're all over the building. This appears to be an April Fool's Day prank. Don't worry, there's no reason to believe the perpetrator knows our true identities. The April Fool's villain traditionally leaves harmless pranks around town." Redestro picked up a puppet between 2 pinched fingers. "Whoever he is, he's strong. I wonder if we could recruit them." My noble ancestor Destro once had a crush on the April Fool's villain. Therefore, the current one would be a worthy addition to my forces. A commotion came from outside. Now Amasa forced himself in. I'm a detective, and I'm here to investigate the April Fool's villain. All evidence must be given into my care. He looked manic with bloodshot eyes and shaking hands. Destro snapped, You can't just search my office. He stepped in front of a filing cabinet full of incriminating material. I'm not a villain. Now Amasa gaped. Well, according to my quirk, that was a lie. Kill this meddling detective, Destro barked. Gettin stepped forward menacingly. Before they could act, the window broke. Destro fell over, a metal ball embedded into his forehead. Gettin was also knocked out by another ball. On a neighboring building, Toshinori held a pack of metal pellets. Good thing you insisted we stay to watch the results of our prank, young Midoriya. Izuku said, Shoto has a conspiracy theory about the Metahuman Liberation Army. I wasn't sure if it was real, but I had my suspicions after exploring their building. The Quirk Supremacy posters were a clue. Toshinori said, Now Masa looked stressed. I wonder if we should prank him next. It might give him a laugh. That's up to you, Izuku said. I picked our first targets. The next one should be your turn. Toshinori poked his fingers together. If I had to pick, I've always wanted to prank Nezu, or at least ever since I became his own employee. But he's scary. Zuko threw back his head and laughed. Nothing is scarier than the April Fool's villain! Now Masa hunched over his desk, muttering in a strange tongue that did not sound like any known language. His co-worker partly opened his cracked door. Congratulations on your big arrest with the Metahuman Liberation Army! I heard the April Fool's villain saved your life. See, he's not so terrible. He didn't save me. Now Masa gripped his mug until the handle cracked. It's all part of his evil plan to take me hostage and use me against All Might later. But I won't let that happen. I'll bite my own tongue and die first. Right. The detective eyed him worriedly. Maybe you should drink less coffee. Can I fetch you a glass of water? This isn't coffee. Now Masa chugged his mug. This is vodka. Oh dear. That's not better. The iron balls left at the scene had David Shields' trademark. Somehow the April Fool's villain has obtained access to Eye Island technology. Now Masa rocked back and forth. It can only be a massive conspiracy. Everyone has betrayed All Might except me! The detective gulped. Look, man, you're my friend, and I'm worried about you, but what if you take the rest of the day off? He stepped forward. Police Chief Surigami's hand clamped down on the detective's shoulders. He hissed, You must be new. Everyone else knows better than to talk to him today. Slowly, the police chief backed out of the office, dragging his detective and staring at Naomasa as if afraid to take his eyes off a rabid bear in case it attacked. He finally relaxed when the door closed. Turning to his subordinate, Police Chief Surigami said, Better to just leave Detective Tsukachi alone. It's okay. He always sleeps all of tomorrow and then returns to normal by the day after. Do not engage him on April Fool's Day. Aizawa had knocked on his boss's door several times already. Nezu never missed a staff meeting. Aizawa was getting worried, but also not entirely sure if this was a test. Raising his voice, he called, I'm coming in, but only because I'm afraid something might have happened to you. Aizawa pushed open the door. Nezu laid sprawled across his desk, not moving. Suddenly in hero mode, Aizawa ran forward. He checked his boss's pulse, relieved to find it steady. Then he searched the room for signs of a villain. Instead, Aizawa found a mug of still hot coffee. Something felt wrong to a coffee connoisseur. Only one sniff was enough to reveal the horrific truth. This was decaf. What kind of monster would do such a thing? Aizawa screamed. The shout reached Toshinori and Izuku as they left the school. Toshinori hunched over his shoulders and walked faster. Nezu is going to murder us when he wakes up. He'll never find out it was us, Izuku sneered. The April Fool's villains fears no one. You are taking to the role quite well, young Midoriya. In fact, Toshinori couldn't help notice that Izuku had gotten more and more terrifying as the day progressed. His voice had become deeper and his eyes seemed to glow. Izuku giggled, low and cold. We've practiced on the easy targets. Now it's time to destroy our arch nemesis. Do you mean All for One? Toshinori asked. I've tried, but he always vanishes on April Fool's Day. Apparently all the pass holders had the same idea. No. I mean my dad, Izuku said. He has the worst All Might takes. I can't even profane your ears with them. Fortunately, he monologues so much that I know just how to destroy him. Hisashi Midoriya lurked in his home office, hiding from the April Fool's villain. The fool had no idea about All for One's civilian identity. Here he was safe. Hisashi only stepped outside briefly to refill his glass of water. When he returned, the latest volume of Captain Hero lay open on his desk, showing the page where Captain Hero defeated the Demon King. Anguished howls screeched for miles around. Izuku touched his forehead. Did you hear a sound like all the vestiges cheering? Toshinori said, They appreciate good pranks. Well, they'd have to know my dad to appreciate the beauty of this one. Now he can no longer brag about having never read that scene. Izuku grinned. If only we could finally prank All for One, Toshinori said. That would make the vestiges even more happy. Oh well, maybe next year. We should split up. That way we can get even more pranks done and create the impression that the April Fool's villain can appear in 2 places at once. Excellent idea, my boy. Toshinori whistled to himself as he returned from a couple pranks, the latest of which had been pranking Naomasa by leaving encouraging fan mail on his desk, praising past solved cases. He'd always favored the gentler type of pranks, plus his dear friend probably felt stressed out after nearly being murdered by the MLA. Where was Izuku? Toshinori glanced down at his phone, read a message from his student, then paled and ran faster. Bursting into Gran Torino's home, Toshinori saw Izuku lying in a pool of blood. Ah! Izuku sat up. All right, I'm fine. I'm just returning Gran Torino's usual prank to him. I know you're fine. For now! You can't prank Gran Torino. He'll put you in a real pile of blood. Izuku laughed. I'm sure it'll be fine. It won't! Toshinori grabbed Izuku by his collar and carried him out the window. The front door opened again. Torino entered, kneeling down at the outline of fake blood. He tutted his tongue to see the damage on his floor. In an icy voice, he said, Toshi, I know it was you. I figured out where Nana went on April Fool's Day years ago. I'll have my revenge for this. Ah! Toshinori wailed as he fled. Behind him, Torino chuckled. The threat was his own little prank. He knew Toshinori would never dare prank him, nor did he have any revenge in mind. It would have been more fun to watch Toshinori looking over his shoulder all year. As for Izuku, should he go easy on Izuku? Or should he show the boy why Nana used to let Torino plot her pranks? Naomasa was in an extremely foul mood after the April Fool's villain had left a note mocking him for his failure to catch him. Those fake compliments had clearly meant, see all of these other villains you caught, but you can't catch me! Even official commendations from his superiors for capturing the Metahuman Liberation Army leader had only put him in a worse mood. because he knew that somehow this was also the April Fool's villain mocking the ineptness of the police. His right eye had developed a twitch. His hands shook so much he'd spilled his last cup of vodka coffee mix, which had not improved his mood. The email on his computer said something about Stain reacting poorly to the Endeavor plushies in his cell, but the words kept twisting and blurring, so now Amasa couldn't read it. He pecked out a reply telling them to add more different kinds of Endeavor merch. Then, fans liked variety. When he received word of 2 new victims, now Amasa ran for the front desk. He slammed his head into the wall while rounding the corner. He definitely needed more sleep. Fortunately, no one was there to see. His co-workers all seemed to vanish when he was around. There should be someone on duty in the lobby, but he only saw a flash of a uniform in retreat. Camille Woods sat in a lobby chair with his arms crossed. It was clearly the April Fool's villain. I thought I saw a fire, but it was only a flashing light. No matter what the witnesses said, I did not scream like a little girl. Mount Lady entered holding a bottle. Someone told me there was a media opportunity, but no one was there. Just an escaped villain stuffed in a bottle. The wicked monster salted the poor slime villain first. It's cruel and unusual punishment. Hey, what happened to your forehead? A vicious fight with the April Fool's villain. Now Amasa rubbed his bruise. Something felt strange to him. The Camille Woods prank seemed like his arch-nemesis's usual modus operandi. Random and seemingly harmless. The Mountain Lady prank was, as she'd said, cruel to the sludge villain. Only this year had the April Fool's villain started targeting his fellow villains for more vicious harm. Now Amasa squinted, too tired to think straight. When did the incident occur? 2 in the afternoon, they both said at once. Now Amasa's frown deepened. Are you sure? On the dot, Mount Lady insisted. Now Amasa paced. Even if he could have set up the pranks in advance, the April Fool's villain always watches his crimes. He's just out of sight, mocking me. This means... There are 2 villains, Camille Woods suggested. They wear a mask. It would be easy to have more than one person playing pranks at once. Now Amasa shrieked. He's evolved into a higher level being with the ability to split himself in 2. Instead of merely taking over Japan, he has his eyes on world domination. Even with the paper bag over his head, Izuku managed to sound dark and mysterious. It's time. We still have plenty of the day left, Toshinori said. I don't stop until midnight. It's time for the big target. Izuku threw back his head and laughed. The Hero Public Safety Commission. Are they villains or people with bad All Might takes? Both. For this momentous task, I've hired outside help. Izuku gestured to the door. Clearly waiting for a cue, the random roof door opened. Gentle Criminal and La Brava waved. Gentle Criminal gushed. We're huge fans of your work. No payment necessary. It's an honor to be a part of your glorious madness. May we film everything? With the air of a king, Izuku said, You will be encouraged to do so. La Brava bounced. I've always wanted an excuse to hack the HPSC. Briefly, Toshinori considered if this might be going too far. To take on the HPSC was to change the fabric of Hero Society. But he didn't want to ruin his successor's fun. Besides, legend said the 2nd and 3rd holders used to prank the Prime Minister. The HPSC president arrived at work to find graffiti all over the headquarters. She narrowed her eyes and made a mental note to send someone to clean it up as soon as she reached her computer. Then she noticed some of the graffiti wrote about accurate representations of recent HPSC covert activities, and walked faster. When she sat down on her chair, a whoopee cushion went off. With a growl, she threw it aside. She remembered the date. If her employees had been playing pranks, then it would be a time for a mass firing. An envelope lay across her keyboard with the words on the front. I know. Starting to sweat, she opened it up. Inside was a list of all the HPSC's worst crimes. Lady Nagant, manipulations of the media to create villains, bribing politicians, the program to recruit disadvantaged children. Her jaw hung open, all composure lost. She started swearing in a broken combination of English and Japanese. On a distant computer monitor, Izuku watched the scene. This is glorious. Thanks for hacking into the HPSC security cameras. It was my pleasure, La Brava said cheerfully. I need to take a screenshot to send Shoto. I left all his favorite conspiracy theories on the president's desk. Izuku laughed. Judging from her reaction, more of them must have been true than I thought. Twisting his hands, Torino muttered, That is very worrying. I need to launch an immediate investigation into the HPSC corruption. Gentle put an arm around Toshinori's shoulder and took a selfie. Not to fear, my silly friend. The public is already crying for justice. People are loving my live stream. I've never gotten so many likes before. Gentle Criminal and La Brava were busy editing an expose about the HPSC when Toshinori received an alert on his phone. He tugged Izuku aside and whispered, We've got trouble. There was a riot in Tartarus and several villains escaped. So that's how the slime villain and Stain got back on the streets, Izuku whispered. Unfortunately, some more dangerous villains escaped and formed a team. 9, Wolfram, and Muscular. If it was only one of them, I'd let the other heroes handle it. But with that lot, I'm needed on the scene. Can you continue being the April Fool's villain in my absence while I change into my All Might costume? I hate to see you break your tradition of never appearing on April Fools. You deserve at least one day a year off. Plus, we don't want to set the precedent that you'll return to the duty if a villain attacks. You'll never get a day off again. Izuku frowned. What if we go defeat them as the April Fool's villain team? That sounds like fun, Toshinori admitted, but it will embarrass the heroes if a villain defeats the criminals. Izuku looked over his shoulder at the Gentle Criminal video production process. We're already causing the fall of the HPSC. A villain smackdown will barely be noticed, but we can always give credit to someone else if it worries you. Toshinori perked up. Good idea! I know the perfect detective to take credit! He works so hard, he deserves more acknowledgement. People fled in all directions as the trio of villains strode down the street. Straight for town square. 9 leapt up on the lip of a fountain, seeming about to make an announcement. Lightning crackled above him. Wolfram sat up recording equipment, and Muscular drew back his fist to punch down the All Might statue in the middle of the fountain. Get your filthy hands off of All Might! A furious green blur shot forward, punching Muscular into the ground so deep that he nearly hit the Earth's mantle. The tiny figure wore a paper bag over his head. It could not hide the glow of rage in his eyes. A much taller man, also wearing a paper bag, crept up behind Wolfram and knocked him out. With a maniacal cackle, he declared, Justice might take days off, but pranks never do! The two of them pounced on 9 and KO'd him with a double punch. He didn't even have time to resist. They left the villain strung up over the fountain, with a note giving full credit to Detective Naomasa Tsukachi. Then the April Fool's villain high-fived and left. The sun was starting to set. The two of them left together because they had a few more pranks to pull. The next morning, every teacher in UA found that their desks had been swapped around. Aizawa was mainly annoyed because his collection of cat stickers got exposed. At the top of Mike Tower, in the back of Toshinori Yagi's closet, 2 paper bags were retired for another year. Police Chief Kenji Surigami stood on a podium and declared, "We are here today to honor the great achievements of a talented detective." Naomasa protested, squirmed. He'd been chained to the podium and restrained with the same muzzle used on Katsuki Bakugo during the sports festival. The police chief sighed as he placed a medal over Naomasa's head. "Please play along. The government has been embarrassed enough by the HPSC scandals. We need a win. We can't admit that a pair of villains saved Japan from a deadly villain team-up." Naomasa worked his mouth partly free of the gag. In a slurred voice, he growled, "The April Fool's villains are mocking me. I refuse to accept his fake credit. Get this medal off me. I won't be indebted to him. I'll catch him for sure next year." The police chief shoved the gag back in. "Cheer up. You're also getting a promotion, a raise, and a bonus." Naomasa's anguished wails echoed across the police station. Omake time! The April Fool's villain origin story. Yoichi. Every year my brother used to prank me on April Fool's Day. Not funny pranks. Mean pranks like replacing the last volume of Captain Hero with a printout of his Demon King Wins fanfic. But I finally got him back. I pranked him so hard that he lost his temper and disintegrated me. By dying on April 1st, I forever ruined April Fool's Day for him. I win! Nana. That doesn't sound like a victory. Yoichi. You must be an only child. Misunderstandings. Toshinori. So how about the April Fool's villain? Isn't he funny? Naomasa. Between clenched teeth. He's completely harmless. Nothing to worry about. You do not need to interrupt your one and only day off for the entire year. I have the situation under control. Toshinori. Oh, I'm glad you find his pranks funny too. Naomasa. I'll laugh along so nothing disrupts your vacation. If my laugh sounds strained, then it's because I don't get enough coffee this morning. Conspiracy theorist Shoto Todoroki. Shoto. This year the April Fool's villain appeared in 2 places and became 2 different heights. I believe he has obtained a duplication and shrinking quirk. He's so powerful, he probably punched All for One and shook loose a few quirks. Ochako. Or it's 2 people. Shoto. Sure, if you want to be boring about it. A bullet dodged. Izuku. Should we swap Aizawa's coffee out with decaf too? Toshinori. We can't. He'd fall into a permanent coma until your class graduates. Let's stick to swapping his desk. Stain reacts. Stain. This is cruel and unusual punishment! Prison guard. Yeah, that's the definition of Tartarus. Stain. I mean the Endeavor plushies in my cell! At least untie me so I can rip them to pieces! The other person who could have found Izuku in a pool of blood. Toga. Delicious! Izuku. Ah! How the April Fool's villain got exposed. Aizawa. Today we will be studying the April Fool's villain. Although his crimes are merely harmless pranks, because of his ability to evade all heroes, some people believe his power is only slightly below All for One. Izuku. Impossible! All for One ranks way below All Might! Class 1A stares. Shoto. It was you two? Way to ruin half a dozen of my conspiracies. And that, my friends, concludes the story. Hero, villain, vigilante, all of the above. I 100% hope you guys go give Katydid kudos for this fic. It was absolutely amazing. I know I loved it. And thank you all so much for listening. I will see you in the next fic. Bye.